The one thing we know about life, right, is that there's going to be change. Like we really don't know what direction it's going to go and how things are going to unfold. And very often when we take a look at our lives, they're not where we expected them to be at this age. We don't live necessarily where we thought we would live, with who we thought we would live with, and we're not the person we thought we would be, you know? And so whether we like it or not, change is here, change is happening, you know? And I like to remember too that everything I want in life is on the other side of change. It's not going to happen if I don't allow change to happen, if I don't welcome change, if I don't build a healthy relationship with change. Then I'm praying for it, but then I'm putting the brakes on. I've got my heels dug in, and I'm resisting all that. Like, okay, God, I want all these great things to happen, but don't scare me. Don't make it fearful. Don't get me out of my comfort zone, and God's like, okay, well, you want all this change, but you're giving me this much bandwidth to work with, do all this change, but make it fit in this little box that I have so I don't feel uncomfortable, and God's like, well, I don't think I'll enable today. Instead we're gonna stretch that out and get your bandwidth bigger so that I can, supply more of what you need and want, so that your heart can grow, so that your life can be fulfilled. So I have a higher power that has wisdom behind which of my prayers he answers, and he usually doesn't answer the prayers that are like, that are fear-based. He usually certainly takes those into consideration, but he answers my big prayers. He answers my prayers of what my heart really wants. That I want freedom, that I want unconditional love, that I want to be brave and courageous. I don't want to, squeeze my life down into a tiny little box that feels safe. I want to live, I want to live fully, and I want to heal my past as much as I might. I might pray for things to not be triggered. Like I don't want this to happen because it'll feel that way, and I don't want that to happen because it'll trigger this, but very often my experience is that triggers are the only way to heal those things. So my prayers have changed, like, thy will be done kind of stuff, like, all right, God, bring it, I'm willing. Even though sometimes resistant or reluctant, and I also wanted to point out our serenity prayer, which is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I cannot change everything. I'm not in charge of change. There's some changes that I'm choosing. There's a lot of change that happens that I do not get a say so. The courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. What are the things that I can change, and what are the things that I should change? So there's a lot of wisdom that has to come for me to have a healthy relationship with change. A lot of surrender, a lot of right-sized humility. Like, I might not know what's best for me. I might not know what God has in store. I might not know the gifts in the challenges that are coming my way. I've lived a long enough life now, and been forced, so to speak, by life's experiences to be out of control a lot of times. And most of those times it ended a lot better than I thought it was going to be, that there was always gifts and opportunities and shifting and change and transformation and healing. And, I've been in recovery for quite a while. So I did my third step, 22 years ago. And I think that was a huge shift in my life, where I gave my will and my life to God, and, was like, okay, from here on out, it's all you now. I'm on for the ride, and I get some influence and I get some say so, but I'm trusting you to take me where I need to go, even if I don't know where that is, And so, and my experience in life has been that there's been a ton of things in the last 22 years, that I have felt out of control about, that I didn't want to be happening. And from here today, I can look back with the wisdom that's in the serenity prayer and say, so many of those things needed to happen for me to become the person that I am today, to find the peace that I have today, to be able to better care for myself today, you know? So it's easy from here to say my relationship with change is much healthier, and there's a lot more trust with change than there ever was before. That a lot of years of resistance happened first, you know. It's not like I woke up one day and said, oh, I'm just going to go with the flow. You know, not this codependent, you know. And you know, a lot of it was kicking and screaming, you know. But it's funny because I've always been like, I'm a hard worker kind of person, you know, like put energy and effort into things. But the hardest thing to put energy and effort in is surrender for me, which is really putting no energy or effort into it. You know, it's like the sitting on your hands thing, that's often harder for me, to allow things to unfold instead of make up shit about it, try to fix it, try to control it, try to overanalyze it. That's sort of my flavor of codependence more often. And some of us don't, you know, some of us don't gravitate towards that. Some of us are more avoidant. We ignore it, we deny it, we pretend it's not happening. I'm more of the get the microscope out kind of codependent. So I wanted to talk about the types of change, that some of them are wanted and some of them are unwanted. You know, we walk through change and some of them are, you know, goals that we have, and then other changes are imposed on us. But I wanted to open this up for everybody to have a chance to say, what kind of change are you dealing with right now, or something that's coming up, or something that you've just gotten through. And, you know, I said, like, okay, moving, engagement, career change. So I've got all that going on, but I would like to hear from some other people. I don't want to take too much time because we have a lot of material to cover. So please keep it short, but go ahead and unmute, and then just go ahead and share what kind of changes that you're in the middle of right now. Lots of people with lots of changes going on. I would like for somebody to poke their head in and talk about a change that they are on the verge of, that they did not choose, that they don't want, perhaps. All right, so thanks everybody for sharing the different kinds of changes that you're going through. And things that have come up for you lately. There's such a range of, types of change, and it can go from a total place of empowerment to a place of victimization, you know. And what we want to do is we want to see God's will in this, right? That's where the steps take us every time, is like, where is God's will in this? You know, where's my higher power? Where is this leading me? Where's the gifts? Where's the opportunity? You know, where is my hopes and dreams and wishes fulfilled? You know, where are the answers to my prayers? And so sometimes when change happens, whether we want it or not, we got to dig in. And the only way that can happen is to question our assumptions about change. You know, I think that sometimes we get so attached to the things that are changing and the story about those things that are changing, that we're not even really questioning our relationship with change itself. You know, we're so focused on the job, the career, the shame, the relationship, the move, the logistics, the list, the planning, the reactivity, the what someone else is thinking about it, you know, that it's like, okay, how do I just back off and see change? And how can I bring change in as a beautiful part of my life experience, so I don't feel like a victim, right? because that's my story, is I am this traumatized child. The back of my brain, right, is always looking for what's going to go wrong, what's going to go wrong, what's going to go wrong. And so even when there's something that is my goal or my choice or my dreams coming true, I still have this part of my brain that's like, what's going to go wrong, what's going to go wrong, and so that's part of what we have to do in recovery, is we have to soothe that story in our head. We have to question that belief system that we have, that everything is hard, that everything falls apart, all of those things. And so what if change was like a soothing, reassuring, safe sanctuary where you brought things to be cared for? I want to lose weight. That's change. I have, a 40-year relationship with dieting and deprivation and sexual shame and trying and failure and weight loss and weight gain and other people's stories and advertisements. And I mean, just all this stuff, and so how do you get all that history out of the way and say, I want this change for me. I want this change for my health. I want this change to get all the shame out of it. And I want this change for my well-being, and take our power back and find God's will in that, the seed of, the seed of that desire in our heart for well-being, for healthy self-esteem, for a right-sized body that can do the things that I need it to do for me, and clear out all that clutter, and in order to do that, we got to do our work. We got to talk to the little kids that are carrying all that pain from all those stories. We got to pay attention to our inner children. We have to surrender a lot of stuff. So we know what works is the steps. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today, is I want to bring steps 1, 2, and 3 into change. And so our step 1, if we were to talk about it in regards to change, we admitted that we were powerless over our fear of change, and it makes our lives unmanageable. And if we can recognize that we're powerless over that, then we don't have to keep on forcing ourselves to do this thing that scares the crap out of us, or makes up all these stories, or brings out our patterns and characteristics, but rather we can surrender all that to God and rebuild our relationship with change. What if change is something that, is actually different than we ever thought it was? I mean, it's like, I can give an example of, I was an addict. Well, I am an addict, and I'm in recovery. And for years and years and years, I had this idea of what being sober would be like. I had no idea the beautiful life I would have if I gave up booze and drugs. I had no idea. I just had this preconception of how shitty it felt to be sober and have to feel your feelings. That was the only thing, not have that relief, to not have that relief just felt like stupid and suffering. And why would anybody do that? And then I finally had to surrender and give up drugs and alcohol because it did so much damage to my life. And then I found out I was wrong. I was so wrong about sobriety. Like there's this wonderful, beautiful, fulfilling world out here. It wasn't like I was going to be bored forever and have no friends and never have anywhere to go. And that my life would be sort of dull and boring. I mean, like I adventure, I'm a hiker, I have tons of friends, I'm always busy, and I've learned how to take care of my feelings, and my life is more joyful than it ever was partying, and I don't have all this shit ton of consequences and shameful, shit going on in the background. So I had no idea. What if change is the same? What if we just have no idea how beautiful change can be? Or maybe we have some idea and we just need to nurture more of that. So that's a thought that I just wanted to put out there. So I want to talk a little bit about the powerlessness and unmanageability of our fear of shame, or our fear of change. And So I want to ask, what feelings, shame, or fear stories do I have about change? I can pipe in and say that, and I've already shared a little bit, but I have this attachment to believing that all change is really hard and it's going to take so long and it's going to take so much effort. And I'd like to keep our answers short because we still have 2 other steps we got to go through. But if other people want to pipe in and just tell me the message, I don't want the whole story. Just tell me the message of like what some of your beliefs are about change, some of your codependent beliefs. Right. Yeah, I'll lose control. Yeah, it'll be one more failure on my list of failures, story. Right. If I change, I'm admitting I was doing it wrong. Or maybe that could be another one. Sometimes when change is imposed on me and I have an avoidant reaction to it, I will have this story that says, if I accept this change, then I'm giving up all my power and I'm never going to get it back. Like I feel controlled and like I have to hold my own or else I'm going to be just, what's a word for that? I'm going to be just like consumed by somebody. I'll just be a puppet for them. If I give them this one thing, then I'm going to just be their puppet forever. There's definitely some trauma in that for me. All right, guys. So yeah, a lot of powerlessness and unmanageability in our first step around our fear of change. And, I just want to acknowledge that we also have lots of other gifts that we bring in relationship to change. We all got here, we all are beings of change. We've all done tons of things and had lots of positive experiences with change. And so what I want to do is I want to move into our step 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, and, coming to believe and the spiritual awakening that is, a union with our higher power and divine love and healing and life force and encouragement and upliftment. And so what are some of the evidence, sanity is that some change is good and some change is bad. Some change has a positive outcome, some change has a negative outcome, but my codependence says all change is scary, So I want to challenge that and say the restoration of sanity would be that I have healthy discernment about change, that I take a look at it through my adult's eyes instead of my little kid automatically freezing up, And so I need to convince myself and soothe my child by sharing with my child through self-parenting that some change is good. In fact, change at its core is good. Like we are evidence of change, right? Like the sperm and the egg met and change happened and here I am, right? I mean, none of us would exist if there wasn't change. So at its very core, change is life. Change is renewal. Change is evolution, and so what can we attach to that? We all got to CODA. That was a huge change. Some of us might be new and still be undecided, but most of us are pretty clear that change was a miracle and a blessing in our lives. But what other kinds of things can we identify that change is good and change is a miracle? Like space exploration, like rain in the desert. I'm looking out here out the window right now and it's raining like crazy, and rain in the desert is beautiful change. This place is so dry and right now it's just flooded and beautiful, and all of the desert is waking up and coming alive, you know, and that's because change happens every day. The weather changes, you know. So what are some other things? Inspire me, guys. Right. So change, inviting change would be inviting your higher power to reveal himself, and you being open-minded and watching for evidence of God working in your life, and presenting himself, maybe. Children, watching our children grow up, you know, change, you know, when they learn how to tie their shoe, when they, you know, draw their first kitty cat, you know, when they, when they learn how to ride a bike, right? When they wake up Christmas morning, um, that's all, that's all change. Some of that change can be scary. I have a 16-year-old. There's some scary change going on for me there, driving, for the first time, and, relationships, and, not having a leash anymore. Is that change bad? No, it's just scary. And and what is that change doing in my life? With my program, it's increasing my fear. It's making me take a good look at how much I believe in my child, how much I believe that they have a loving higher power too. It's making me reevaluate all my mistakes and take some of the shame out of it and say, those were necessary for me to get here. It's okay if my child makes mistakes. It's okay. It's necessary for them to stumble. It's necessary for them to make choices and learn from those choices. The goal as a parent is for me to not, wind them up and send them down a little road so that they can just, they got to do their life. They got to find their way. They have to discover themselves. They have to find their own higher power, and that is beautiful change. If I get my fear out of the way, those are all beautiful changes. And then changes that, changes like that we're all praying for, like peace on earth, cures for cancer, cures for physical maladies, and those are the things that we want to leave our hearts open for, and why do we have a hard time believing in things? Because there's that little kid inside. For me, this was my story. There's that little kid inside that had, unlimited hope, unlimited belief, unlimited, vision, I guess, and then disappointment. And nobody taught her how to manage her disappointment. Nobody taught her how to handle her feelings around disappointment. Nobody taught her how to reframe things in a way that would still help contain that beautiful innocence that a child has, the open-mindedness, the hope, the believing in things, the believing in miracles, the best of all of us, the best in the world. Instead I had codependent parents, that taught me, well, that was stupid, that taught me that was stupid for me to believe in the first place, or that taught me that, like, I was, my dad especially, like, I was better off to never have hope in anything because everything is always going to let you down, So, so who is my higher power? Is my higher power my parents? Right? I gotta get mom and dad out of the way if I want, a power greater than myself to restore me to sanity. I have to be really clear that that is my higher power, that that's God. It's not my parents' old stories. It's not their old role modeling. My God is different. My God is not my dad. My God is not my mom, and that the woman that I am today has access to and resources for so much more than my wounded little kid did in the hands of wounded little kids. This is a completely different world that I live in today for change than the world that I lived in when I was 4 or 5 or 10 or 16, you know? So we have to challenge ourselves to build trust. And I think that that really is what step 2 is about. So step 3, we made a decision to turn change over to the care of God as we understood God. I know that we are going to take a little break at 2. So I have an idea. I wanted to kind of give people a little bit of a writing assignment if they choose to. I have some questions that I wanted people to reflect on. And then we can come back and discuss it a little bit. And it's about the inner child and some intimate healing work where we need to talk to our little kids. I benefit from talking to my little kid intimately, asking questions about what their experience was like as a child. And then I can understand where some of the roots of that fear of change come from and open up that dialogue so that I can let God in there and have some healing messages. My suggestion is that I'll write these, you guys can write these questions down, and we'll take like 15 minutes and everybody can write and, use it for get a drink, whatever you need to do. And we'll come back after 15 minutes and then we can share a little bit more on step 3. I don't have this written down. I'm going to go ahead and just read these questions out. If somebody would actually type them and put them in the chat, then everybody could see them. Okay, so the first question is, what was our experience of change when we were kids? I guess to personalize it, what was my experience of change when I was a child? Was our role modeling of change healthy, or was my role modeling of change healthy? Like, my parents were codependent, so they were very fear-based, and there was a lot of fantasy about change, perfectionism, over planning, trying to control it all, or catastrophic fear on the other side of it. Oh my God, this is going to happen. The IRS is going to come and close the door down. You guys are going to be homeless, living on a street corner. So change was like either chaos or fantasy, and there wasn't anything in between. Very often there wasn't any, or at least it didn't hit my radar. As a child, I was like tuned into, either, go away in La La Disneyland or over here, terrified to breathe another breath, And so what was our role modeling of change? Like, was it healthy? Third question, were our first attempts at change supported, welcomed, and strengthened? Supported, welcomed, and strengthened. So healthy parenting would look like, let's say I'm 10 and I decide I want to learn how to play the flute. That's a change I want to make in my life. Did you really? Okay, that's funny. I don't even know where I got that from, but well, now I guess I do. But so was that something that was, welcomed, where was I supported in that? Was I shamed and told I was stupid, that was a dumb idea, or you can't make any money doing that? Or what were the messages that I got about that? If I wanted to be an athlete, if I wanted to be an astronaut, if I wanted to, the changes that my heart was attached to, how were those treated? And also changes like my sexuality, like starting to grow breasts, right? As a teenage girl, having crushes, having a will of my own and saying no, different kinds of change like that, expressing myself, maybe having a different opinion than my mom or dad about a political issue, and then the last question is, were changes that were imposed on me done with care and compassion? So if mom and dad show up and say, we're moving, And I'm like, I don't want to move. I like my class. I like my teachers. I like my house. I like my room. Was there understanding around that? Or was it like, shut up, too bad, we're doing it, suck it up? Was I shamed for my feelings around change that I didn't have any choice in? You can see when you look at this, like all of the opportunity for damage to be done in our relationship with change. And that's what we want to acknowledge. It's not our fault that we're afraid of change. So let's go till, like, what do you say, 2:20? I'm Heidi, I'm codependent. Still. That didn't change. So I don't know if people got a chance, because it was a lot of chit chat in the break, I'm hoping that people had a chance, if they chose to maybe take a minute and write on the questions. What I'd like to do is just open it up for a couple of people to poke in and maybe talk about a little bit of what change was like when they were kids. And that helps us to be able to relate to each other and heal together and acknowledge, really acknowledge, that we're not turning change over to the same God as when we were kids. We just really I needed to really define that, because it would be insane today for me to turn change over to my parents. And, that would be craziness for me to turn change over to them. But that's all I had when I was a kid growing up. So does anybody want to share on what they wrote? And we'll just take a couple of minutes. I think your caregivers are your caregivers, and it's okay to just look at them, in this scenario and ask, what was from your little kid's perspective, what was your experience of change? Whether, that, like, well, especially if you had older parents or older caregivers and they were growing older, then you were experiencing the changes of their aging. And what was that like? That's beautiful. I love that story. What a creative way to get the kids on board and make all that change like a fun game. It's a great example of some good parenting, I think. And that's what we would like to do, is we would really like to challenge the belief that we have about, like, our parent now. I call my God is my higher parents. And how do my higher parents see change? Do they want me to change? Do they invite me to want things and to want change for myself, or, because my parents were always overwhelmed in the middle of too many things. They were both workaholics. They were everythingaholics, and so their life was chaotic and overwhelming. And if I wanted something, if I asked for any change, then it was the straw that broke the camel's back, And so out of that, I often learned how to be needless and wantless. And I learned that the only changes that I could want or let myself want or get attached to was whatever changes they wanted. So then I just learned how to codependently, like, live in the little box of what they wanted. They wanted this to work. They wanted me to be Mormon. They wanted me to get good grades. They wanted, they wanted me to work hard. They wanted me to be, be a certain way. And so that was all okay for me to want, but anything outside of that box I couldn't want, and I'm still trying to heal the part of me that has that, natural inspiration from within that says, this is who I want to be. This is what I want. This is the direction I want to go in. instead of looking for, clues outside of me for what I should do or who I should be, you know. So that's just an example of how that my experience of change affected my relationship with wanting things, also. So, oh, thanks for sharing that. I love hearing somebody's, healing awarenesses and, that getting those ahas that like are big shifts. So that's beautiful to share that. Appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to just go through and write down some things in relation to what it's like for me to make the decision to give change over to the care of God as I understand God. And I have to do it consciously because, my codependence is my autopilot. My autopilot is where all my PTSD is. So I have to be really conscious about choosing my choices. And I've been in CODA for 14 years now. So I have, some better habits, better habits of thought, better habits of checking in, better habits of paying attention to my feelings instead of just stuffing them. I have I have healthier relationship with all of the emotions, so that my sadness doesn't automatically turn into, rage, or my shame doesn't automatically turn into blaming or, so I've settled down some of my reactivity around my emotions. So my emotions are healthier and they're the healthy compass that God intended. And they give me a more accurate picture of what's going on in my world, and how I truly feel about things. And again, like I was saying, uncovering what I really want, and oh my gosh, when I first started thinking about, changes that I want to make, like it had to qualify as a change that others would approve of, a change that, like I'll be nicer, skinnier, clean, or I'll be, I'll make more money, or, like I'll be more admirable, I'll be more favored, I'll be more normal, or, and so it was just such a big shift for me to, turn that inward and say, what do I want? And give myself permission in conversations with my higher power and my little kids, what do I want? And that it just felt like I would say, what do I want? And there was just this like blankness, just this empty blankness, like this terrified child going, what are you even talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about. Like that is just a foreign language to me, and so it's taken a lot of like prying and trying little things, just little pieces of stuff along the way. My little girl felt most safe at first with small changes, like she liked the color blue, like as you can probably tell, I like blue. And there wasn't any shame around liking blue. So she just put all of her happiness into liking blue, and she could ask for blue, and she wanted a blue truck, and she wanted blue clothes, and she wanted a blue notebook, and and just like how innocent and sweet is that, but really sad too, because it was like she couldn't say anything else that she wanted or liked except for like blue things, but that was the seed. And I had to be the self-parent that understood that and then just kept coaxing and creating safety and coaxing and creating safety. And then she wanted to go hiking. She loves the outdoors. She wanted to spend more time outside. And so we had to walk through some trauma around that, because I had some traumatic experiences that happened with my dad, around the outdoors. And so that, that was a journey for a while. And now we have a great adventurous outdoor hiking, backpacking life, and the healing for the most part is over. And now it's just all fun and rich and rewarding and a great place to connect with people. And, and there's not all that shame around it, you know. So looking for areas that you need to, put your care and attention on change, it's like, how do we allow God to make love and care the basis of all change instead of the fear and shame that shame, or the fear and shame that change, that's attached to the idea of change, and we just have to be really conscious self-parenters, to talk to the little kids and say, how do you feel about that? And reassure them when they give us the answer, like, oh, if I do that, I'm going to get in trouble. A lot of times change means risk, and we have to be self-parents in a way where we don't have to be anything, but what I have found is that it challenges me to be a self-parent that believes in myself, like believes in my little kid, that believes in it's okay if you don't do it perfect. It's okay if you change your mind. It's okay if you put some money into this and then you go, this really isn't for me. I have to get rid of those old stories that I'm supposed to know exactly what to do. I can never waste money. I can never waste time. I can never go down a path and then change my mind because then it was a mistake and I was wrong to waste, blah, blah, just blah, 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 whatever your story is. I've got a lot of stories, like Shannon was talking about, her stories are different than mine because it was just, her mom was very neglectful. She described a childhood where there just wasn't anybody there to reflect with. There wasn't anybody there saying, these are the changes that I want to make in my life, and this is how I feel about them, and what do you think, and what are the changes that you want to make, and how do you feel about those, and how can I support you in that? Like, those were not conversations that they had, and that is one kind of damage. The damage I had with my parents is that they told me what to change. They told me everything was changing. They forced us to change, and they dissected what change meant, why we were changing, and built lots of big shame, fear stories about what would happen if we didn't change. And so, big abuse in both of those stories, and those kinds of, those, but even in my story where there's not the same kind of overt neglect, what was neglected was teaching me and guiding me to have a healthy relationship with change, to soothe myself through change, to find my power in changing my mind and choosing a different path. There's so much pressure that's put on kids to figure out what they want to do with their whole life and what college to go to, and you know what I mean. I remember even when my child, started like exploring different haircuts, and I was terrified about them cutting all their hair off and regretting it, and they were just like willy-nilly with the scissors. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so scary. Like, if you cut all your hair off and you hate how it looks, oh my gosh, you're going to just have to hide from the public forever. And then like 2 years ago, I guess it was a year and a half ago. I don't know. When did was a year and a half ago, I cut all my hair off, and like, my child was my hero, and my CODA program, and just said, screw it, I'm just going to cut all my hair off, and like, I wasn't my hair. Turns out people still liked me with short hair. And it also turned out it really wasn't me. And I love my hair and I'm growing it back out. But what a way to take back my power, to say, like, I don't have to live in fear of making a change. I can change, and then I can change back, and I can change my mind. And that is part of the beautiful journey that we get here, So I keep getting off on tangents. So getting back to the, making love and care the basis of all change instead. So most of my goal setting, I'm like a big A-type personality goal setter. So most of my inspiration for change came from fear and shame prevention. right? So I'm coming from a place of, oh my God, I'll be destitute. I was going to say prostitute. That's a different fear. I'll be destitute. No one will like me. I'll be homeless. I won't be able to take care of my kids. There's like financial fear going on, or if I don't control my food, I'll eat out of control and I'll be 500 pounds, and no one will love me. And yeah, I mean, just so change was inspired by fear and fear of shame, and so how do we shift that? Like, okay, maybe the fear and shame is there still, right? I'm not cured, right? So I still have fear and shame. And so the fear and shame bring something to my attention that requires my care, but it's still my responsibility to shift into that care and to come into that change from a place of care and love, and settle down the fear and the shame. And the only way that I have found to do that is to accept myself 100% exactly where I am. And the power of that is the power to make that shift, so that your change is coming from care and love, and and you've got that full bandwidth of God in there, instead of that fear and shame cutting down that channel. So it's this tiny little place where you're letting a little bit of God get in, because I do feel like our fear and shame, blocks us from God. And not completely, but it's a barrier, and so if I can get that bandwidth open, so that I'm coming at it from an open-minded place with love and care, and say, okay, here's change. Holy shit. It like, bring it, God, and it just put on your seatbelt and trust, and build some faith muscle, and build some self-esteem muscle, and build some loving life muscle. Find that innocent little kid in you that wants to get on, the roller coaster and throw her hands up and say, we, instead of like the hanging on so tight to every little thing and saying, oh my God, once the change starts, I'm going to regret it. I'm going to change my mind. It's going to consume me. I'll do it wrong. Wait. I have to figure it out first. Wait. I have to figure it out first. I have to know that I'm safe, but turning our will and our life over to God means that we do it anyway. We do it anyway. And it doesn't mean that we have to race into it or rush into it. I'll talk a little bit about the changes that, that I've been making lately with, quitting my job and moving and putting my house on the market and all that stuff, and it was a daily process of like, I mean, I've lived in this house from before I got clean, like 25 years I lived in this house, and I had the job for 15 years, so these were big established like security blankets in my life, and and I've battled with workaholism. So my job is my identity, and I'm a manager, and what are they going to be able to do without me, and how are they going to replace me? And I have to make sure, the story of like, I have to make sure that they're set up and good before I go, or they're going to be, or they're going to be like cussing me out when I'm gone. And, but, so the fear stories and the catastrophes and the, I don't want to be blamed, and I don't want to make anyone else be inconvenienced. I don't, but it came down to like, I'm nobody's hero except mine. I get to take my life back and be my own hero and follow my joy and follow my bliss. I get to do that. And then there's that, like, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if me and Vince break up? What if I spend all my money and then I can't find a job, or, and like, that's so irrational, like, I am not that person that does things compulsively, like, I am not that person that can't just get up off the couch and go find a job. Like, you know, I mean, if anything, I'm the opposite. I'm the over ultra responsible kind of person. So I'm not going to just lose all those great skills that I have spent, you know, 50 years working on. And so what are the shame stories back there? Those are old mom and dad tapes. You know, you're lazy. You know, you expect something for nothing. You got to pull your weight. You know, I was taught very conditional love and approval in my codependent home. You know, I was loved based on my performance. And, you know, I'm still healing that. And so those messages pop up, and it was like confronting them, turning them over to God and saying, no, I want this for me. I deserve this. I've checked it out. It's a safe thing to do. And I embrace healthy risk today. I do not live needless. I do not live fearfully. I do not let fear, you know, define my life or make my decisions anymore. That's my disease. I don't let my codependence, you know, limit my life. Like, I have a God that walks with me, that bails me out when I do make mistakes, because God knows I have done that. You know, I have a God that has a lot of grace. I have, you know, I have higher parents that have my back. And I've got a wonderful network of support. I've got a fabulous partner who, you know, who's honest and stable and loves the shit out of me and you know, will be there for me and wants to give me this gift, you know, of taking a little time off of work and integrating into a family unit and being able to start a new career, you know, somebody that believes in me. And so my codependence wants to say, oh my God, don't trust that. Then you're going to owe him something, or he's going to rub it in your face later, or, you know, and I just can't listen to that shit anymore. You know, those stories are there. They're just getting quieter and quieter and quieter because I don't give them power in my head. You know, I just don't obsess about them. So pulling in God, you know, and finding my truth. What's my highest truth? What's my higher power's desire for me? What's my heart telling me? You know, I'm allowed to be happy. You know, I don't have to live needless and caution, you know, with all the caution in the world, and don't ask for too much and don't be too much, you know, kind of what Shannon was talking about. Like, don't be too much, don't ask for too much, don't, you know. So this has been a really great place for me to, you know, sort of catalyze a lot of changes that I've been working on in my CODA program for a while, you know. And sometimes that's one of the gifts of change, is that we don't really know if we can fly until we jump out of the nest, right? And that's true for all change. You know, we can sit back and reflect and heal and do our step work and talk to God, but until we put it into action, then it kind of clicks, and we know that we are worthwhile, that we are valuable, that God has our back. You know, we have to spread our wings sometimes, and that's what change is about, you know. One of the things that was important for me to continue to work on while I was in this change is that I really had this desire to villainize where I was. Most of the change in my life, in order to motivate and empower myself, I have to villainize where I am and then fantasize about where I'm going. You know, so, oh, Vince's house is amazing and it's huge and it's beautiful and it's new and it's modern and it's right under the mountain and it's right on the desert and it's, you know, and there's nothing wrong with all that. But my house is on the west side and it's 25 years old, and, you know, it needs new appliances, and, you know, and I don't know any of my neighbors, and I'm living in a crappy little community. And, you know, when I look out the window, I see an air conditioner, not like the Superstition Mountains, you know. And so, And so I had to back off of that, and I had to instead, because I don't want fear and shame to be my motivation. And I don't want to build fantasy, right? Because I'm a fantasy addict. So instead, I had to find gratitude, and I looked around my home, and I'm grateful for all of the 25 years that I've been here, all the memories that I have. I'm grateful that I'm moving to a house where the paint isn't crackling off the walls, and it needs all this work. And, I'm just looking at the whole situation with just gratitude, and giving it to my higher power, but taking the judgment out of it, that it's not bad or good or right or wrong. Just like my higher power loves me so much. And this is just a really generous change that I've also worked really hard for. And, but to not villainize where I was, like, especially around the job, like I've been getting triggered a lot in my job. There's things there that irritate me. There's decisions that people were making that did not make any sense to me. And so I wanted to just go in my head and villainize, and then, and villainizing is judgment, villainizing is just fixing feelings. And I don't want to avoid my feelings anymore. I want to feel them. So what are the feelings that I have? Well, there's fear of change. There's fear of, I'm going to let these people down. They're going to be mad at me. And that's such an irrational fear, like once I leave the job, they're not going to be in my life anymore telling me what to do, or there can be no consequences for that, so that's just a very irrational child's fear, that everyone needs to like me. Everyone needs to approve of my decisions. Everybody needs to co-sign, my life. And that is just not true anymore. It's just not true. I love people's support, and I don't need it for me to be okay, so that villainizing was just really about, feeling out of control with things that I can't control, other people's decisions, other people's perspective, other people's choices, and feeling like I was going to have consequences from all of that, and I was going to be blamed. And I could just not take that blame. I have boundaries today. So those are the couple of the things that I, that I was continuously working through and working on, and surrendering and turning it over and turning it over and turning it over, as I was going through change. I gave them 2 months notice, and it took about 2 months for the house to sell and for me to get moved. It all happened very gracefully, very quickly. I just like, bam, it was a bunch of work, but ultimately, like, divine healing conspiracy of the universe stuff, it just all flowed really well. And my higher power walked me through the whole thing. But I didn't want to take all my shame and pour it into my old house, and take all my shame and pour it into my old job. I wanted to leave those areas clean, because that's my history. That's my heart. You know what I mean? And every time I've done those kinds of things, then they like haunt you later, relationships that you didn't really leave in a clean way, and you're still harboring resentment, or you're still harboring, it's like, we got to clean that stuff up, because I don't want to carry that around forever. I want this to be a healthy change, and the way to do that is gratitude and right-sized, taking care of my feelings instead of villainizing. So those are some of the things that I had to practice. I like this, that change coming from love instead of fear and shame is like saying, I am okay and lovable as I am, and I'm making this change I desire to take better care of myself. So it's not a message of, I'll love me more, I'll be more lovable when, it's not conditional love based on the change. And when we do that, we're setting ourselves up with an expectation that I'll feel better about myself after this change. I'll be more worthy of myself love after I make this change, after I lose this weight, after I get a better job, after I graduate college, after I, whatever it is, and that's, performance-based love. It's not real, true, genuine love right where we are for no good reason other than that we're loving beings. And even in the face of a change that we don't choose, I am okay and lovable as I am. And accepting this change that I do not want or choose does not diminish me in any way. And that is a powerful way to find your power in change that you're not choosing. That me accepting this change does not diminish me in any way. And making that powerful statement to yourself. I think especially my teenager is afraid of that. If I conform to what you want, I'm giving away my value somehow. I'm giving away my power somehow. I'm giving me away somehow. And a lot of us get really afraid around that stuff. But if I can say, yes, I allow this, I accept this, even though I didn't choose it and maybe don't want it. And in that allowance or that acceptance, it does not diminish me in any way. I'm not giving myself away. I'm just allowing this to happen. I'm accepting this. And so, so that was powerful, and that was like in the accepting other people's decisions about the work environment stuff, just because I'm allowing that and I accept that and I stop all this judgment and resistance, just because I'm accepting that and allowing that and working with it, because it is what it is and it is real. It's reality happening, right? And that does not diminish me in any way, because my little kid feels like it diminishes her if she accepts it. And it doesn't, unless I let it, So anyway, we're coming up on our time. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and close with this. I think it's really important to realize that we will get triggered in change, we will. There's just no doubt, and so building healthy relationships with trigger management is really important. I'm going to get triggered. I'm going to get my fear triggered. I'm going to have my patterns and characteristics are going to get poked at, and just to say, and that's okay, because triggers are often, it's my signal that I need some self-care. It's a love note from God, if we want to call it that. It's a love note from God that, hey, you got to do some healing around this. Hey, you got to do some reinforcing around that, triggers aren't a bad thing. It's really hard for me. It's been hard and still continues to, I struggle with sometimes, that triggers are bad. Triggers are bad. Oh my God, I got triggered. Oh my God, I got triggered, And it's like, no, that's not the case. The case, the truth is that a trigger is the doorway to change. It's telling me that something needs my care. It might be something inside, might be something outside, might be a relationship, might just be my thoughts about something, how I'm framing it. But I will get triggered, and I've got to accept that and then learn how to take care of myself around triggers, timeouts. Don't, like time out from reacting, time out from responding, take my time to journal about it, talk to God about it, talk to my sponsor about it, settle down my feelings around it, do my own soothing, talk to my inner child, and then I address the trigger on the outside, and we get better at those things as we practice them. And then the other thing is that bigger changes need a bigger God, and I've been thinking about that a lot for the last, I don't know, I guess 6 months or a year or something like that really came in strong in a meditation, that that for life to get more manageable and for me to function better, I either need less fear or a bigger God. And what I've discovered is that it's easier to get a bigger God. So I could just get a bigger God. And it's great to do the work around, the inner child stuff and therapy and power work, but I could just accept that my higher power is that much more powerful and cares that much more than I even know, and has all the right answers. And so, sometimes the greatest power that I can have, the best decision I can have, is surrender a little more, surrender a little more to my higher power, be listening, be open, and let my God have a bigger place in my world, because I underestimate God all the time. I always have. And God shows up in ways that blow my mind. And, and I still feel like sometimes I just have a fraction of an idea of how much God loves me, and how willing God is to help me, get healthy, joyous, and free, and happy, joyous, and free. So anyway, I would like to make a suggestion to people to use your notes and use your work today to write some affirmations about change, and put them up around you. I always have affirmations up around me because they do help me integrate new belief systems. And that's what my codependence means, is it needs to always be building new belief systems, that are based on love and care instead of fear and shame. So I would encourage you guys to do that. And with that, I will pass. Thanks. I think there's a chunk of us out there that have fear of success. And I can just share something that I uncovered about mine. And it was that when I was a child and I excelled in something, I triggered my parents' shame. And so there was abandonment, So it's like I got a mixed message, be good to make us proud, but here's the ceiling. Don't outshine me. Don't you dare outshine me. Don't you make me feel shame. Don't you make me feel less than. Don't trigger my old history. And so, how does a child live in that world? We don't know what happened to them or where their shame, triggers are, or, so my interpretation of that was, to do well and make them proud, but stay small, and because my shining would make them feel less than, it would trigger their stuff, and so it was like I'd get smacked down with a don't get too full of yourself kind of, attitude. And so there's that little kid inside me that's always trying to like be enough to make them proud, but not too proud, Anyway, that was. I can just say that because of our traditions in Coda, we don't endorse outside, we got some traditions. We got to be careful about endorsing outside stuff. Follow your heart. There's lots of good stuff out there. There's lots of great authors out there. There's wonderful podcasts out there, but as a Coda speaker, I'm not going to reveal any of that. If anybody reaches out to me personally and, and there's something that touches my heart to share with them, I certainly wouldn't keep it a secret. But on this forum, I'm gonna pass on that. Well, my first thought on the money thing, and I also have a big issue with time, wasting time and wasting money. And so one of the mantras that helped me, first of all, I always try to, I've been guided and taught, to do the work, to go back to heal the little kid. Where did those messages come from? Because they're deeply embedded in there. I can know better in my head and I can still start shaking, And so, so I have to do that work. It'd be nice to just say, no, I know better now. I can just spend better. But PTSD is real for me. So I have to go in and soothe and talk to the little kids and reframe my relationship with money and spending and value and all that stuff. But one of the mantras that really helped me was that all the money is God's money. Like all the money is God's money. And all the time is God's time. It's all God's money and it's all God's time. And if I truly believe that my higher power loves me and is generous with me and available for me, and that that God's nature is one of grace and abundance, then that means that I have the privilege of having that money and that time. I don't have to fight for it, earn it. I don't have to blood, sweat, and tears my way into deserving it, and those are just stories from my childhood, so I also am trying to change, those relationship with time and money, and doing really good. I got money wise, I'm great. I just sold my house, and I don't have a job and I have all the time in the world, and so, and I don't have any guilt about it, really, I don't want to say, oh, that's healed, but it is a miracle that I can sit here and enjoy this beautiful home that I live in, and I could go buy anything I want, and I'm not in a race to go earn anything, and this is the first time in my life I've ever had this luxury, and I'm not freaking out. I'm settled inside. My heart is happy. I'm letting myself receive, and I don't think I've ever been available for this relationship with God. And I can feel like my God's love for me around this, that, it's super healing for me to be here and receive this. And I was finally ready, I was finally ready to receive that gift, so, so that's, I guess, what I would share about the money stuff. And then about the work stuff, that'd be a long conversation, but one of the things that occurs to me that I was just walking through with my issues with work and the decisions that they're making and how I see things differently than they do. It's like I have to build that right-sized muscle to say, it's not my company, it's not mine. It's theirs. I'm being paid for a service, and to stay in my lane, I guess. And give them back responsibility for making good choices. And if they're not listening to good feedback, then they're going to make the choices that they make, and they're going to make the decisions they make, and they're going to make the mistakes that they make. And I may be right or I may be wrong, but that's not mine. I don't own that. I don't have to be the hero. So I have a hero complex. And so settling down that hero complex, is important for me, that everyone has to like me. I have to always have the right answers. And I have to make them see, but I enmesh with my job, as a workaholic. I enmesh with my boss. I enmesh with other people, and I take on the consequences of whatever they're doing. That's just my natural codependent way of caretaking. I just enmesh with things, and it's going to be a nightmare. And I have to self-parent and say, they're going to have their consequences, and they can choose to do with those what they want. I've done my part by expressing myself, by bringing my professionalism, by offering, suggestions, or, and I can let it go, and there's the PTSD that comes up around that, which is like this eggshell feeling, like, oh my God, it's all going to blow up and I'm going to be blamed, and I just have to soothe myself and settle myself down and say, they are not dad, Dad's not going to come exploding into the house, punching holes in walls, or threaten to take away my Barbie doll, or whatever it is that I'm afraid of. And so just, for me, it's about soothing that child, like walking through the empowerment decisions, and then soothing the PTSD that comes up, soothing those old messages and saying, nope, we're safe. Let them have let them have the results of their decisions, whether those results are good or bad. I don't need to have an attachment to it. I can let that go. I can wish them the best, and and I'm safe over here in my boundaried system of, I know who I am, and also the validating the contrast of what I know I don't like or agree with or want. Everything that I don't like, that I don't want, that people and their ethical issues, let's say, if they're doing things in a way that doesn't feel ethical to me, and they got shady behaviors going on. If I can arrest my codependence to not enmesh with it and take it on and say it's something that I have to fix or else, and get myself over here, I can observe somebody else's ethical issues and say, I am grateful for who I am, and that I see the world through the eyes that I see the world through, and that is not me. And I appreciate my integrity. I value my life experience that brought me to my values. And I am really grateful to see the contrast of who I am not. And that does not deface them. So it's not about shame, it doesn't devalue them. It just esteems me, and that's kind of what we want to do in right-sized self-esteeming, where I'm not villainizing them. They haven't learned those life lessons. Maybe that isn't in the cards for them. I don't know. I'm not God. But I do know that I really appreciate the value system that I have built from the mistakes that I have made. There's some humility, from the roads that I've gone down that I've regretted, from the pain that I've experienced out of doing harm to myself or others, and I don't wish that on anybody. And I don't have to accept it from other people either. I don't have to suffer their consequences. So I don't know if that helped, but okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing. I will give you, I'll pass along something that I have learned how to integrate into myself, and you can see if that works for you. But as a wounded child, and from a dysfunctional family, the radar is always on in my codependence to compare myself to everything. Am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I as good as that person? Or am I not good enough for that as that person? Are my skills as good as that person? Am I as pretty as she is? Do I make as much? Am I as kind? Am I as thoughtful a gift giver? Am I as good as a cook? That's just the natural, it's my natural codependence. It's like always compare. So when we settle that down and shut that down, and we start working on unconditional love for ourselves, and that I don't have to compare myself to others, that is not where I get my value from. That's not what makes me safe. It's never made me safe, right? Because that's why I do it. I want to feel safe. It's never made me safe. Not one day in my life did it make me safe. And it, in fact, makes me unsafe, right? Because I'm never going to be the best at everything all the time. And that's what that quality says, is I'll be safe when I'm at the top, and no one can ever budge me from the top. That will never work. It's just irrational. So instead, what if everything that I see around me is a sign from God that that's something I can have or do also? So if I see someone pretty and in really good shape, like, what if that's a sign that I can be pretty, or that I am pretty, and that I can get in good shape. I can have fitness on that level if I want it. If somebody drives by with a really great trailer and toys on the back, they got a Ranger, they got, that's a sign from God that, like, what if all of life is just an inspiration and everything I see is not there to compare myself to, but rather to be inspired by, right? Like all of life, I am a part of all of life. I am one of all of us. Like we're all, children of our higher parents. We're all expressions of God's love. There's this amazing thing that unites us all, right? The love within us, the human spirit, whatever you want to call it. What if everything I see as I'm going down the road every day is an inspiration to what I can want if I choose to? Choices about what I want. What if everything is put in front of me to go, ooh, you could be that. Ooh, you could have that. Oh, you could do that. When I'm watching TV and I'm watching advertisements, or I'm watching a movie and I see like a great relationship, or like I see a couple holding hands, instead of going, oh God, I don't have anybody, I could instead say, oh, there's love. There's a sign from God that love is waiting for me, that love is coming for me. It's waking up that desire within me. What if all of that I've just been misinterpreting my whole life? And that it's all been a divine invitation. I want to say one other thing too, that, I'm just a codependent who, was challenged, to like, well, why don't you do one of those workshops? Because I had such big opinions about stuff. I'm like, I have all this exciting recovery going on and I can't stop talking about it. And like, you should do a workshop on that. And it was actually shame. And it was, gosh, I don't even remember now, like 7 years ago or something, so I am 14. I only had like 7 years in CODA at the time, and so I just want to, say that, like, if you're feeling inspired, to do a workshop or to present or to speak, don't hold yourself back. Like, let your higher power talk through you. And, I'm going to touch people that no one else touches. You're going to touch people that no one else touches. It's the nature of what we do here. So we don't have to be experts. We're just sharing our experience, strength, and hope, and, it's a beautiful way of being of service. And I just want to invite people, to, like, if you're feeling the inspiration, reach out if you want to talk to me about it. I'll encourage you, and I'll be a good person for some feedback about that. But yeah, it's a fun thing to do. It's really fun, and it gets easier. It's scary as shit the first time you do it, or it was for me. Well, I want to say thanks again to the committee for, and I know half of them have already, left the meeting, but thanks everybody on the committee for the work that you guys do, and creating a healing space for all of us to come and learn and experience and share. And it's a beautiful thing. So yeah, it was pre-COVID. And so we were more like in-person events and stuff like that. And yeah, and it's just fun to get together with a bunch of people and brainstorm and, make deep friendships, and, and to talk about the newcomer, like what's in your heart for that newcomer that's just coming in, that feels lost. Their life has fallen apart. They just don't know where they fit, and we all remember what it was like to be new. So I think that, doing service from that place of like, I get so many of my needs met through service, but remembering what it was like to be new is a powerful reason why I share. Like, I don't ever want to be new again. I don't ever have to be new again. I don't ever have to feel that lost and that broken ever again. So I want people to know that there's answers here, that we're a family, that we do heal, that there are solutions, and that CODA is a loving place for us to find ourselves.